Good evening and thank you for joining us. It's the news more than 150 Canadians have been waiting days to hear. They can finally go home. Thousands of people, including 36 Canadians, have disembarked the World Dream cruise ship. They were stuck on the vessel for 4 days because of concerns over the new coronavirus. But they're back on solid ground today and appear to be in good spirits after all tests for the deadly virus came back negative. Meanwhile, Ottawa has chartered a second flight to bring more Canadians home from Wuhan, China. The passenger list is still being compiled, but the government expects the manifest to be finalized in the next few hours. The plane should take off tomorrow, but as Couteur explains, there's confusion about who will be allowed to board.
They clarified that I'm not on the list, which means I'm not allowed to leave.
Yi Jiang is stuck in Wuhan, China. The Torontonian has permanent resident status in Canada, but was in China for business when the coronavirus outbreak hit. And he says Global Affairs Canada told him he can't get on the next evacuation flight back home.
They just told me they understand my situation and then I'm not a priority right now. I just want to evacuate a Canadian citizen.
There were about a dozen permanent residents on the first evacuation flight, but it's believed they were allowed on because they were accompanying children. Thursday, Foreign Affairs Minister François-Philippe Champagne said the government is trying to get everyone out of China.
We're certainly pushing to include also permanent residents who could be coming back home, and we will continue to make that representation to China.
But there's confusion because people in Wuhan are being told it's the Canadian government, not the Chinese, who is saying permanent residents can't leave. So while the second government charter to repatriate Canadians has left CFB Trenton, it would seem Jiang won't be on that plane ride back home. Coronavirus has already claimed more than 800 lives in less than 2 months. That surpasses the number of SARS victims over an 8-month period back in 2003. Despite that, the Prime Minister says the risk remains low in Canada.
The measures that we have taken on, as recommended by the World Health Organization and our own Chief Medical Officer, are effective till now.
Some of those measures include putting 213 people in quarantine at CFB Trenton. And today, we got our first glimpse of life on the base, which includes fresh air time for evacuees.
Even talking to friends from a distance, well, at least 2 meters, I guess, it's good to have a break.
And it was a good break for Canadians who were among the crew and passengers of a cruise ship that had been quarantined for 4 days in Hong Kong amid fears some staff contracted the virus on a previous voyage. Most were relieved to be let off, but this man felt otherwise. Life on the shore isn't actually too comforting, he says, echoing fears shared by some in that part of the world as the virus continues to spread. Couteur, Global News, Ottawa.